Yeah, that's why I'm really, looking forward to speak about Artemis and your connection to her and to the wild inner nature.
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay, then let's start with the first question. And I would say, who are you? Could you like introduce yourself quickly to our readers?
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Vanessa Chakour, and basically I would say that nature as self, remembering that we are nature, is at the core of my work. And I feel that, in relation to goddesses and Artemis, I feel that she really represents that core understanding. I'm the founder of Sacred Warrior, which the mission behind that organization is teaching people this understanding of interconnection through the lens of plant medicine. Many of the plants that we consider to be weeds that are already under our feet. Basically, my aim is to awaken wonder in people. And I find that in doing that, we feel moved to take better care of our environment. So through Sacred Warrior, I led a lot of retreats in nature in partnerships with organizations like the Wolf Conservation Center. Basically, I wanted to create immersive experiences that are transformative through that lens. And recently, my partner and I have become stewards of 270 acres in Western Massachusetts. So it's always been a dream of mine to protect and defend land like Artemis. And so now we're doing that here. So it's been my life's work. Ever since I was a child, I've had a really, really deep emotional connection to land. And when I learned about Artemis, she really represented all the things I felt and I believed in.
And how did, or let's start, yes, how did Artemis then came into your life?
Well, interesting. One of the things I didn't mention about myself is that I trained as a professional boxer as well. I trained and so, that practice helped me really reclaim my body in a new way. Help me like learn how to sort of, use aggression or like purge anger from body through training. But it was also a way to really focus my energy, feel confident in my body. And that's also an aspect of Artemis. She was a archer, a martial artist, a defender of the wild. So I just felt that she embodied all of these things that were very important to me as a woman. So I feel like I first learned about her even in elementary school, and I loved that she was always wandering around the woods with wolves or dogs and this defender of the land. I wanted to be that when I was a kid. I didn't know how, but even as a child, I was writing letters to environmental organizations. I just had this deep understanding that something just wasn't right. So I looked to her kind of as this emblem of strength.
Yeah, because it's really interesting that you also say it in the book that she is kind of not the first, but as ancient and environmental activist.
Absolutely an activist. Yes, exactly. And one of the things I found fascinating when I was researching the book is the belief in Artemis protected land. So, belief in these guardians as protectors, even if we see them as mythical beings, as beings that are not real, they become real because we believe in them. She protected land because people believed land was under her watch. So these myths and these taboos literally protect land. And I found that absolutely fascinating. So in reality, she was a land protector because people believed in her. And so I just found that really, really interesting how, because we've lost a lot of our stories, in various traditions and various cultures, the land doesn't have these stories that protect her,
Yeah.
and this is a myth that has carried on and on and on, persists. And so there's a reason for that. There's a reason that she persists. So yeah, I absolutely see her as sort of the archetype of an activist, on behalf of women and nature.
Yeah, because it's also that she already connects this both topics. Like you say in your book,
Exactly.
on the one side, she's a goddess of the moon, also connected to the feminine being, to woman, and to nature. How would you say, how would you see, or how would you interpret this triangle of Artemis?
How, say the question again? How would I visualize it?
That these three are kind of connected, and that inwoven in herself, like this nature and environment, the woman, and the moon. How would you interpret it? Yeah, or
exactly. I mean, I think, well, for one thing, I know we are nature, right? If you look at evolution, we're related to all of the trees and plants and fungi and animals around us. So she understands that, and she's an ancient emblem of a strong woman who stands up for what she believes in, and who is a defender of women as well. I see, I often we refer to Earth as Mother Earth, right? So there's this feminine aspect of Earth that's receiving, that creates life. Or if you think about soil, for example, we put a seed in the soil, and but obviously in terms of there's masculine and feminine, if you want to call it that, aspects of in Earth. But I see these are just all aspects of life. The other thing about Artemis that's really interesting is she was also a midwife. She brought things into being. She helped her mother give birth to her twin brother Apollo. So so there's this aspect of birth, and all these different kind of stages of womanhood that she defends and represents as well. So yeah, the sun and the moon, the light and the dark. One of the first chapter in my book is about mugwort, a plant that is named for Artemis. The botanical name for the plant is Artemisia vulgaris. And so interesting. So it's a plant that represents various aspects of the goddess. So it was often used to initiate labor, and then so that parallels with her connection to childbirth. But also in herbalism, this is often referred to as a moon medicine, because this is a plant that is really helpful in lucid dreaming, connected to the moon, because this plant has a silvery back, related to kind of like traditionally was used for visioning and these kinds of things, and moon cycles. So we obviously, women, menstruate on the moon in relation to the moon. So there's that connection as well. And this plant interacts with all of these things. And being the moon goddess, it makes sense that this plant is kind of embodies aspects of Artemis as well.
And as we have the goddess topic, is there anything like else, other aspects or qualities of Artemis which impress you, to stay with the topic Artemis, and then we can go on?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, so she really, the reason it's called Awakening Artemis is because as you said, I feel like that there's an Artemis in every woman. There's that defender of the wild. The wild is us. We are nature. Defender. I mean, defending our rights as women, our bodies. One of the things I read about in the book is my experience with sexual assault. And how boxing and learning martial arts really helped me reclaim my body. So I just feel like she's a powerful archetype. She's a powerful sort of goddess to look to for self-determination, for reclamation of our bodies and our innate belonging to nature.
And I also appreciate it. I also read it in the book that there was this Jungian female psychologist, and she criticized that for Jung, the psychologist, the woman was the virgin, like
yes,
exactly. Like exactly. This kind of woman far away, like from the body.
Yes,
like, without so many own sensations and like our own will. And Artemis is not the opposite, but a complementary of woman being, of not just like the holy mother and nothing else, but woman can be so much more.
Exactly. You're not just either a maiden, a virgin, a mother, or a whore.
Yeah. There are these three
know,
types of woman, and there's nothing else.
Exactly. She's a complex figure. She stands up for what she believes in, and she's, so yes, there's that definition of the virgin, which is a woman unto herself, who's self-realized, or who is self-confident, not pure, so to speak, in the way that many people see or use that word.
And so you already said that we are like also the wild nature. It's like awakening Artemis, and also I saw it on your website that reclaiming wild nature, or our wild nature. What does it mean? Like, what does it mean to awake our wild nature, and how do we do it?
That's a good question.
First, what is it, and then how can we become it, or how can we or also to stay with the picture or the metaphor of Artemis, how can we as women, or also men, because men for sure also have like Artemis aspects, what can we do to nourish it?
Yes. Well, so one thing I would say is to remember that we're animals. Humans often elevate themselves above nature. Religion has done that, some spiritual practices try and elevate us above other animals, but we're animals. If you look at evolution, we evolved with other animals. We're creatures of the earth. So I think that helps us. That, for me, that's actually what my next book is about. And remembering that, there's so much denial of our animal nature for various reasons. So I think to be wild, to me, is to be natural. There's this idea sometimes that we define wild as being totally out of control, but I completely disagree. I think if anything, we become out of control when we suppress ourselves, when we suppress our wild nature. For example, if you're constantly suppressing anger because you think that it's bad, it will still come out, but maybe in more negative or explosive ways, or make you feel sick or tense. So healthy expression of emotion, like peeling back layers. I often described it, when I talk about creating art or writing in my book, it's like getting rid of all the noise, unloading all the noise, peeling back layers to kind of that very natural self, feeling at home in your body, knowing that sex, for example, isn't a dirty act. There's no, just feeling comfortable in your own skin. Remembering that we are nature, getting your hands in the earth, walking barefoot on the land. I think being wild means something different for everyone, but it's like taking a deep breath and being natural. Again, thinking about what really matters to you, going outside, going for a walk in the woods, sitting and paying attention to the trees, breathing with them, remembering that you're connected to it all. If anything, to me, sometimes being wild means really slowing down and taking a deep, deep, deep breath, and really feeling comfortable in your body, and remembering that your body is an animal body. And that's a beautiful thing, so, and just examining your belief systems. I think that's really important. If you feel shame in your body, if you feel any sort of discomfort, just looking at where that comes from. Whether, for me, my tools were movement practice through martial arts. That was really important for me, getting really comfortable in my body. Writing has been an important tool for me, just filtering out all the noise in my head and really seeing what it is I'm feeling and thinking. Visual art has been an important tool for me. These can be tools for anyone. You don't have to do these things professionally. Mm-hmm. They're just ways to move energy from your body out onto the page, and to feel natural again, to feel some sense of relief. But I think first and foremost, connecting to nature is the most important thing. And not just seeing nature as scenery, not as beautiful scenery, but remembering that we're part of it, that we're of it, I tend to prefer, abandoned lots with so-called weeds that are more natural than very manicured gardens. There's being wild to me is being untamed, not trying to control everything.
So would you say that writing is also kind of a spiritual practice for you?
Oh, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's if anything, it brings me down to earth, it's a practice of just sort of, yeah, it's interesting. I had a conversation with my partner recently, and we were talking about the word spiritual versus genetic memory, like remembering that you're connected to everything. That's kind of what I feel. I feel it helps me to unload a lot of the noise in my head, or it helps me to sort of distill what I'm thinking, or have important conversations on the page, or things that I really feel like I need to express. So yes, you could call it a spiritual practice. You can call it just embodied practice. Is something that my body needs. I feel like it comes from my body, yeah. So absolutely.
Yeah, it was really beautiful what you said, that maybe like a spiritual practice would be like everything that brings you back to earth, as we are.
I lost you for a minute.
Now better? How my internet? It's better now?
Oh, okay. I was just about to text you to tell you that you froze, but now you're back.
Now I'm back. Okay. I said it was really beautiful that you said the kind of a spiritual practice would also be like everything that brings you back to earth.
Yes, exactly.
That makes you grounded.
Yes, exactly. I don't like the idea of spiritual practices as being something that ascends, that takes you beyond your body or beyond nature. For me, I prefer practices that make me feel more at home in my body and closer to nature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think you write it also at the beginning of your book, that it goes also like in this both directions, like to expand the mind, but at the same time, so you're like having your roots deepen,
exactly,
like a tree. I thought I like this picture a lot when people say about it. And you also say like Artemis is also like connected to nature, and especially also to animals. Animals are her companions, her friends in nature, when she's like wandering around and protecting them, and also hunting, and herbs. And there's also a big, like at the end, the main topic of your book. So why herbs? You said like herbs helps us to reclaim our wild nature. What do you mean with that?
It's very interesting because, I became interested. I had a lot of health issues growing up, as you know from the book. And so I was always very interested in learning how to facilitate healing, or I should say, bring my body back into balance in natural ways, whether it was through the way I ate, incorporating more movement practice. And as I got older, I learned a lot of things that helped me manage my asthma, for example, which is my first issue, and then the car accident that I was in. So I was really interested in that. So I started exploring herbs to help balance out my body, help me become more healthy. But what really got me interested in it, and what really made me like focus my career and my work around plants, is when I learned that there were so many medicinal plants that I'd once seen as weeds, that I was taught were weeds, that were actually the centuries of history in herbal medicine. And I was walking by them every day when I was living in New York City. There was mugwort growing through the crack in the sidewalks everywhere. And it's an environmental, it's an activism issue as well, because here in the United States, people still spray pesticide and carcinogenic chemicals on plants like dandelion to get rid of them, because they perceive them to be weeds, which is absolutely insane to me. And it's making us, and it's making the earth sick, just because of our perception of these plants.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely, and science and ecology know that this is absolutely not true. And so for me, it was, I would say, multifaceted, because for one, these plants were literally helping my body to heal. But the main thing that got me interested was like, oh my gosh, we have forgotten this. Most people have forgotten this. And no matter where we're from, our ancestors worked with plants. We all have indigenous cultures somewhere. And this is something that we've been separated from. And so for me, it was going back to my ancestral roots for one thing. It was becoming much more aware of the land under my feet that I had been absolutely blind to. And so walking around New York City, around Brooklyn, where I was living at the time, became an entirely different experience. It was like I had awakened the wonder I had as a child. Like I write in the book, a veil was really lifted between me and the natural world. And I became absolutely fascinated. Walking down the street was completely different. And there are so many medicinal plants that we consider to be weeds. And in some cases are the most valuable ones because they're abundant. So for me, it was just like a no-brainer. I wanted other people to see this also, because it was life-changing for me. And I wanted other people to have the same experience. And I believed that if people could just awaken to the wonder that was right under their feet, they'd be moved to take better care of the land. So that's why I framed the book in this way. And I just find plants absolutely fascinating as well. You know, that the one plant is a world in and of themselves.
Yeah, and I think that a big topic also of this wild herbs, they're also wild. I already have like spoken once to or it was an article, I don't know, but we have a lot of articles around herbs in our magazine. And she said that you can get more wild, you get wilder when you eat wild herbs. For her, it's like this connection, because they are not like sophisticated plants, not like a tomato plant that you seed somewhere and it comes in your garden. No, like the Artemisia, it just grows wildly wherever it likes.
Exactly.
And that's also for her like an important picture that we have like take an example, that not like that we can reclaim our own space. And the plants also show it to us. They grow wherever they like, and they, even if they get poisoned, they come back. They are really resilient.
Yes, that's beautiful. Exactly. Yeah, I read about that in the dandelion chapter, how this is such a fighter, you know, it doesn't matter. They came back
a warrior.
And a warrior plant, absolutely. So yeah, I love that. That's exactly right. You know, because, you know, there'll be an abandoned lot in New York City or any city or anywhere for that matter. And these so-called weeds populate it. And, you know, they're important food for pollinators. They're part of the ecosystem. You know, granted, it's tricky because there are some invasive species, of course, which is a different topic entirely. But yes, they reclaim space. And I love that. And I believe, yes, they show us how to as well. And for me, they connect me more to my animal nature. You know, when you're out in the woods in a place that's safe to harvest, you're like looking around and eating from the ground. You become more animal that way. You know, it's true, you become more wild. You're so much more attuned to your environment, the smells, the textures, you know, what used to be sort of like a wash of green, everything is like magnified. You know, you see everything differently. It really is. You just like, it shifts your vision. It's like everything comes into focus. And so it's a different way of living in the world.
Yeah, that really completely. And so you said that you're also working as this English word, an activist for environment. How this came up, and how would you then also say that this work of yourself, of this activism, is also spiritual activism? Or
yes, I would say so. I mean, you know, again, like as a child, I grew up in the woods in Western Massachusetts, and it's interesting. This is where I've come back to this area, and my partner and I have just bought a large chunk of land. Although I have very conflicted feelings about even saying owning or buying land. We prefer the word stewards. But it's been a dream of mine to, quote unquote, own land to protect as much as possible, and also provide access for people, you know, particularly the indigenous people whose land was stolen here. Yeah. So, you know, environmental activism felt just natural to me, because as a child, for whatever reason, it was just like it was clear to me what was right and what was wrong. You know, it was clear to me that certain things were unjust. And even as you know, and I think, you know, I have to thank my mom too for nurturing that in me. You know, I was writing letters as a kid when I was upset about something. So it came from an emotional response. to feeling a deep emotional connection to land and to animals as a child. And so it was really my emotional responses that I didn't feel the need to mute or shy away from that led me to be an activist. And I've become over the years convinced that with Sacred Warrior, that, you know, creating these experiences and doing these plant walks for me was a form of activism, because I felt like I was helping to foster this emotional connection to land that I feel like we really need desperately. You know, it's different. It's different than, for many years I was fighting for something, and that's useful, but to bring people into an experience, an embodied experience, can change something. You know, I've had people come to my retreats and my classes and say, oh my goodness, I see my yard and my land differently. I'm not spraying anymore. I told my neighbors not to spray pesticide on their land, and they told their neighbors not to spray because these plants are valuable. So things like that, because it comes from an emotional place, a feeling of recognition that we're related to the land. So my approach to activism has changed over the years, you know, where it's like, it came from fighting against something to bringing people into experience of where I hope eventually they fall in love with the land, and then we're moved to take better care.
So you would say, like, and as we face a big environmental crisis, that it would change more in our behaviors if we would really experience it?
I think so. I really think so. You know, if people could get out of that rat race and that like tunnel vision, and come into experiences where, say, for example, they're unplugged, they're camping on the land, or, you know, and somebody introduces them to these plants and foraging these plants that can heal them, you know, where they can drop in a little bit more to their bodies and remember this sense of interconnection,
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then maybe realize that you can do away with such consumption, this consumptive culture. Yeah, I don't know. I really feel like when we feel that sense of belonging to nature, why would you want to destroy it? And when you feel content in yourself too, I feel like the more content I am, the less I feel the need to consume and to buy things to make me happy, you know? So yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think it's very much, you know, in the busy world, sometimes we're disconnected from our emotions, but for me, at least, it's very much connected to my emotional responses to things. Like, I will choose not to do something because I don't want to perpetuate abuse of animals, or I don't want to perpetuate this practice that pollutes the earth. So even if it might be more convenient for me or more comfortable for me, I don't want to participate in that. You know, my body knows that it's going to cause harm. I don't want to be in that chain of events. And so I do feel that if we allow ourselves to feel, you know, feel the grief of what the earth is growing through, grieve it, feel it, you know, that I think will move us to do something about it. It's overwhelming sometimes, but I think if people work and act locally, you know, get involved in something, it actually makes you feel better. You know, it makes you feel less hopeless. If you're involved with something like physically getting your hands on the land, or actually going somewhere to do something with someone, I think that really, really helps, rather than just reading the news or being on social media and reposting things. I think that's overwhelming, you know, and it harms us emotionally.
Mm-hmm. And then we
Yeah.
also say, like, with the information, I think it's important, like, to be informated, but as you said, we are then more in the mind, more in the clouds than really in the embodiment, in the nature, in the body, and that's where it's really happening. It's not happening on our smartphone or on our screen. It's happening when we are not looking at the screen.
Exactly.
That's sometimes we get like naturally confused. It's like you say, it's overwhelming, so much input that's
it's overwhelming, and then sometimes the only way to escape it is to, like, you know, just disconnect from it, or to become emotionally numb. You know, it's too much. It's really too much. So I think that unplugging is really important, getting outside. And if people really want to get involved, to do something like literally hands-on, you know, where you're working with the land, is very healing, you know. So it's really healing to get outside and work with nature.
So our time is running up. We just have now 8 minutes left. So which was like your core motivation to write Awakening Artemis? Like, which was like your inner motivation? What did you want to say to the world with this book?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really a combination of my journey of healing, and I'm hoping like all the things that we talked about are contained in this book. You know, I share as intimately as possible, you know, when I was writing the book, my own wounds that I had to heal, the trauma that I had to heal, and the way that nature and connection to land really helped to heal those wounds, and also awaken me to the sense of interconnection. So really the core motivation was to help people heal themselves and to inspire them to heal and develop an emotional connection to land and to the earth as well.
And to awake again their goddess Artemis.
Absolutely, yes.
Which everything is like interconnected.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. To awaken the Artemis within them, you know, to awaken that warrior spirit, you know, fighting for
the warrior.
Mm-hmm.
We need like very like urgent in our time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, it can take on different forms. You know, for me, what I'm doing right now is just, you know, like being a warrior on behalf of the land, being a warrior on behalf of a cause you believe in. But it doesn't have to be, it can be from a place of loving something or someone or a cause. It doesn't have to be an aggressive energy.
Like,
you know?
Artemis, she's also like a warrior, but she also does not come with an army, or she's at the end a woman with a bow and an arrow,
Exactly.
half naked in the woods, but still a warrior.
Yes.
But not on a very aggressive or in a like too intimate way, but still like with her power.
Yes. And I feel like, you know, it's really important for us to experience joy. I feel the earth and the land and the plants and the animals want to be celebrated as much as they want to be defended. So it's important for us as animals to just enjoy being here, to celebrate it, to be in love with the land, you know. I mean, so, and I think in doing that, you know, we can also do really good work on behalf of the earth too.
Oh, nice. Okay, thank you, Vanessa. I think that was a good finishing sentence.